Love and light. I would just like to reiterate the stupendous power of prayer uh, several times now, where I have been faced with a situation where I was either uncomfortable with the person, or I didn't want to see someone, or I didn't want someone to see me, or I thought the person had ill intentions, whatever the case may be. Several times now, I have prayed and seen nearly instantaneous, miraculous results as far as stopping confrontation, assault. Like I've told people before, I've had people attempt to rob me, attack me, or at least have that intent in their mind and even admit it later. But yeah, and all I did was pray, and they literally left screaming. But this this has happened now with government agents, or people that I thought were some sort of government agents that just made me uncomfortable on my block, or and in one time they turned out it had nothing to do with me, but I still knew someone was just sitting there watching, and other times with people who didn't belong in the neighborhood or were causing some sort of confrontation. And I'm telling you now, I don't know from a rational perspective if it's just that because I'll go out on my front lawn. I live in a suburban neighborhood right outside of Philadelphia, but I'll go right out on my grass and pray, right in front of everyone. I'll sit in a lotus position, looking straight up at the sun, hands in the prayer position, and maybe that's what scares them. I don't know. But they always go out of the way to tell me they're not scared as they're running away. It's funny. Not that they're scared of me, of course, or I don't want them to be scared of me. They're scared of whatever is moving inside them to tell them this is not appropriate for them. Love and light to all. Before I go again, I want to make another video, and I apologize if you've heard me talk about this before, but there's still so much confusion about the 5D thing, and I've really got a good amount of clarity on that subject now, I feel like. So because some people are like, when will I get to 5D, and some people are like, I'm already there. And a lot of those people that are saying they're already there are not, and there are some people who are getting there and thinking they're not, but because they're expecting it to be something different. So both things are possible. You can both think you're more advanced or less advanced. Either way, the solution is clearly to drop judgments and expectations about where you are on the path and simply accept the greatest good you can serve in that moment, in that day, because the lessons that you need to learn must be learned. There's no way around them. You can learn them faster, but they still have to be learned. They can't be skipped. There's no way to skip any of the trauma inside. It has to come out. All these things have to be dealt with. But again, so let's first talk about 5D consciousness and 5D then we'll talk about 5D physicality. So again, 5D consciousness in its pure form is unity consciousness. Now, this is what I want people to really grasp, okay? To be in actual 5D consciousness, the ego is gone. At least the negative human ego, that psychological level, the conflict mind, the mind, not that you can't have a thought in 5D, but there's no need to. Like you don't function that way, And the only reason I even had any thoughts whenever I've been in pure, what I would consider pure 5D consciousness, and again, I've also been in 5D physicality, but more rarely. But when I'm in pure 5D consciousness, the only reason I'm having any kind of thought interaction is due to my interactions with others who are thinking in those patterns. Where I'm by myself, or when I'm by myself, there's literally an emptiness that is just love. You're just sitting in a field of love. So when you approach unconditional love in your heart, in your being, in your vibration, you're getting close to 5D. Okay? You're getting close. And once you can hold that vibration for good periods of time, you're definitely going to be experiencing 5D consciousness, because that's basically what it is. Unconditional love and acceptance of all you see in your reality. That's it. But even if you've removed 50% of the conflicts and psychological blocks in your mind, this still leaves you in quite a different reality than actual 5D, where that is gone. So understand, this is past what we call death, past the normal position of death, the veil, past the false personality. One has surrendered their personality to their higher self completely and allowed it to be zero-pointed and restored. All right. Now, that's as far as your consciousness being purified, your mental structure, your mental body being purified, all this. Your physical body being purified is a different matter and takes a little more time. So like I've told you, I have also experienced 5D physicality. So when I experience 5D consciousness, but 3D or 4D physicality, I am experiencing the world that I always have been, although it's a different world now than the world I grew up in, to be sure. But I'm experiencing the basic same world with basically the same people in it, other than I see them completely different. I see them as perfect. I see them, although I can see their own blocks and stuff, I feel nothing but love and compassion for them. So it does look more vibrant, it does look more beautiful, but it really just feels very different. As opposed to when I've been in 5D physicality, meaning I ascended temporarily, either through a grace or through pushing and striving, whatever you want to. No, not through that. It was through surrender. There's no other way to get there. But I have, my ego has pushed me to points of surrender at times because of its own desire to escape its own suffering and its own mess, you know. So, and my desire to know again and to remember everything about myself that I've forgotten, and about everything, you know. But in those times that I have experienced 5D physicality, and I've experienced even higher than that, that is radically different than when I experience 5D consciousness with 3D physicality. Because in 5D physicality, there's no bodily pain, there's no suffering, and I'm definitely not the same being that I am now. Like I wasn't there long enough to understand everything about it, but I do know I could alter reality at will. I could look at something and it would begin to change its shape, appearance, color through my attention on it. It's more like being in a dream. It is very different. Now, I was experiencing 5D physicality in my home alone, you know, or there have been a couple times with other people, with my twin. There are other experiences we've had. I've had some experiences with animals, but I haven't been out in the world in 5D really. I've been in perhaps in the woods, but not out in the world interacting with others, and that may not be possible on any kind of continuous way for me until the collective joins us. Unless I want to leave the collective and just go into the ascended realm, but I don't. That's not the plan for me, and for multiple reasons, which I don't even understand all of them yet, because that's from my higher self's perspective to understand all the reasons that my ascension is taking the length of time it is, you know. But again, that's just what I needed. We're all different. We all are. Our egos are all structured different, and the traumas we took on are all different. So, you know, some things are similar, some things are not, but we all have to follow our own individual path. But it does help, I believe, to not be confused on these things and to not think, because I know there are some people, because I often try to tell people that 5D exists now, that they are there now, that they can experience it if they simply go deep enough into silence, that they can actually surrender the ego. There will come a choice point. If you go in deep enough into silence, deep enough into unconditional love, there will be a point where the ego feels it has no footing, nowhere to hold, that it can't sit in an energy this big, and that's when one will either retreat or move forward into surrender. And even if one moves forward into surrender, it does not mean it will be permanent. You know, I have moved forward into surrender 20 times now. There was definitely something different about the last time. It was permanent. It was permanent. Although it did not remove every single bit of negative ego, that's because it did at the higher levels. The physicality has not been purified, so I still need to move into my crystal light body, and I'm still holding trauma in my subtler bodies and some of them, and in my physical body, you know. So yeah, I hope that does clarify things, because I was going to say that, but because of that, when I try to explain this, some people respond with the perspective that fifth dimension is just happiness. It's just joy. So if you're being joyful, if you're being happy, you're experiencing the fifth dimension. Well, it's true that this is much closer to the fifth dimension, but you are not in the fifth dimension if you have any kind of mental conflict going on, because it does not exist there. Now, I really mean this, that there is no way to bring it there. It's impossible. It does not exist there. So there's no way to get there without surrendering the ego. You can temporarily put the ego down in order you with your guides and in conjunction with the angels and your higher self to experience something for a temporary time. And see, that's another thing why it's taking so long. Like, I can't take, when I go up into the physical higher dimensions, this vehicle cannot yet handle sitting in those energies for more than 20 minutes at a time, 30 minutes at a time, from my experiential perspective. Okay? And that's just what it is. You know, that's what I'm being guided. That's what we need, because there's a lot of changes that have to happen in here, you know, to move us from carbon-based to silicon-based. Anyways, love and light.